opening ceremony. And oh, see, and that was going to give my chance, Stuart, for do that traditional "your audio's not on" joke. So I will start over. Welcome everyone to the JA Company Program opening ceremony. And for those of you who have been JA partners for a long time, you know this is always a great time of year for us, where we get together and we celebrate the accomplishments of all the students who participated in the company program since November. But just like a lot of other things, we've had to pivot this year, and we're going to do things a little different. But I also think we've brought some really exciting opportunities and really awesome guest speaker, which we will get to here in a minute. So a few things. First of all, as we try to do, we will make this as interactive as possible. You will have a chance to vote for your favorite commercial one more time. We will have a little bit of an opportunity to talk to our guest and get some feedback through the chat function. It'll be a little bit different than we've done it in the past. And then we will announce tonight the winner of the best commercial for the JA Company program this year. So for those of you who've joined and aren't familiar with the program or maybe new to junior achievement, we are an economic education organization, and we started in 1919, and entrepreneurship is in our DNA. And that's really going to be something that you'll see interwoven throughout the activities tonight. And actually, if you're able to tune in on Tuesday and Thursday, you'll see that as well. This year, we had 6 companies participate. Over 120 students participated, creating their own startup and really taking their own entities from everything from the beginning to actually cashing out their company at the end and hopefully providing a return to their investors. This involved over 50 volunteers from 6 partners that we will highlight as we move through the program. And it equated to over $7,500 in total revenue that these startups raised over the course of the year. So what we would like to do, in a theme that we've had throughout the last 4 or 5 months, is really also make this a networking event. So I would like, tonight we have with us Sunil Gupta, who is an accomplished author. He will be sharing with us some of the things he's learned through the course of his career, very entrepreneurial, and the book Backable that he has published that really talk about, from a perspective of growing your business, that it's not just innate. You're not either talented or not talented, but the ability to learn how to get your particular entity backable, no matter what that may be. I'm particularly interested. He gives there was an anecdote in one of the promotional materials for the book, where how he used these skills to get his daughter to clean her bedroom. So if that's not a transferable skill, I really don't know what is. So Sunil, we will come back to you here in a minute. But Stuart, I do want to go ahead and get to the first part of our program tonight, and that is to introduce our student company commercials. Each company produces a 1-minute commercial to talk about their product, their entity, and what they're trying to do in the community. We will show the commercials here, even though many of you have seen those, and then we will take 3 minutes for you to vote one last time. And then everybody needs to stick around for the end, because before we leave tonight, we will share the winner of the best company program commercial for 2021. So with that, Stuart, cue up our sizzle reel.
Ugh, my eyes hurt.
These are Blue View blue light glasses. We are here to help ease the strain of everyday electronic use for a clearer life offline. With the COVID-19 pandemic and living in this modernized virtual world, people all across the planet are working and learning online more than ever. This modern and digital life proves that blue light is everywhere. Blue View blue light glasses reduce eye fatigue, eye strain, improve your sleep quality, and prevent visual discomfort. Protecting your eyes from harsh blue light is our #1 priority. In addition to all those benefits, Blueview offers black or clear glasses frames to match with any outfit. Protect your eyes from harsh blue light and buy your own Blueview blue light glasses today.
How do you feel about being on a computer all day for school?
It is very tiring to sit in front of the screen time all day long.
My eyes hurt.
Staring at a screen for 8 hours a day clearly won't help with that. So we made the perfect adventure for you, Science Adventure. Science Adventure is an at-home science kit filled with fun activities that takes kids on a space adventure. Along the way, there are interactive brain games and experiments with most materials included for them to complete their mission. Make sure to share your findings to our Inventors Adventure community through our hashtag #IAMyAdventure. You can buy a kit for yourself or donate a kit to Girls First or Boys and Girls Club of Philadelphia to support underprivileged kids in Philadelphia. Additionally, 10% of all proceeds will be donated to the nonprofit iPraxis, whose mission is to inspire Philadelphia students to explore STEM fields. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more information. Visit our website to order your kit for only $22.99 and start your adventure today.
Did you know that cell phones are covered with 25,127 bacteria per square inch? Cell phones are one of the dirtiest objects we come into contact with every day, and we bring them everywhere.
Oh, it's my screen spritz.
What do you use it for?
You use it to clean your phone. It's pretty cool, it's reusable, and it's easy to use.
Awesome, I'll definitely buy one. That looks really helpful for my everyday life.
Yeah, and it's portable, so you can have it in your backpack, your car, your bag, anything like that. You can take it with you anywhere.
That's perfect.
Included in our Screen Spritz kit is the Screen Spritz spray bottle, a microfiber cloth, and a portable bag to carry everything with you. You can head to our website, ja-ikea.square.site, to purchase yours for only $12. Here at Screen Spritz, we want to inspire people to live a germ-free life on all their portable devices. Screen Spritz, keeping you safe through these challenging times.
Need help with social media? At Trendsy, we are a group of 17 determined and hardworking high school students who founded a social media consulting company in order to lend our experience and skills to the local community. Through Trenzy, we collaborate with businesses to build their online presence and boost sales. We offer full social media management, strategy, advisory, as well as websites catered to your specific needs. In just a few weeks, we've had several successful projects. For example, we've created a website that combined two businesses, helped to manage the social media account of a realtor, and provided a marketing strategy for a nonprofit. We hope that you can be the next customer that we fully satisfy and look forward to working with you. And remember, to keep your content trendy, make sure to work with Trenzy.
Excellent. So by now, you've seen our commercials. You've had a chance to think about it. So 3 minutes left. Please go to the information. Go to our website. Information should have already been provided. You've got 3 minutes to vote on your favorite commercial. And again, tonight we will award the best JA Company Program commercial of the year before the close of our ceremony. But don't go away, because after that, we will come back to our special guest for the evening, accomplished author and entrepreneur Sunil Gupta. So I'll see you in about 2.5 minutes. And welcome back. I want to get to the highlight of our evening. And for those of you who've been with us, Monday's been kind of a big night for junior achievement, right? Because during our company program, we spent a lot of our Mondays talking to a variety of local business leaders and entrepreneurs, and I think we had some really good dialogue, but we really wanted to do something special tonight. And we have with us Sunil Gupta, who is an accomplished author, entrepreneur, and I think most importantly, Junior Achievement alum. So Sunil, welcome this evening to our virtual competition. Think you're on mute?
Paul, thank you so much for having me, and hello everybody. Yeah, as Paul mentioned, my most proud achievement by far is the fact that I'm a Junior Achievement alum. It makes me really happy to be able to come back and to talk to you, especially on a big day like today. I know you have a big week ahead. You know, it was Bill Gates, I think, who said that that success is a lousy teacher. I was talking about this quote today. And if that's true, which I believe it is, then I consider myself to be very well educated. I come at you today not from the perspective of somebody who has a long list of success, but somebody who has an equally long list or longer of failure. In fact, I have run for public office and lost. I have started companies that didn't work out. I have missed promotions, canceled projects. In fact, I had failed so often that a few years ago, I got a phone call from the organizer of a conference called FailCon, which stands for Failure Conference. And let me just tell you, it's a humbling experience when somebody calls you and says, hey, we would like for you to be the keynote speaker at a conference called FailCon, which stands for Failure Conference. So I end up giving this speech, and I didn't know this at the time, but there's a reporter from the New York Times in the audience. And fast forward to me sitting in my apartment in San Francisco, and I open up that day's paper, and there's a full-length article on failure with my face as the cover of that article. Now, this article goes so viral that there was a period of time where if you would have Googled failure, my face would have been one of your first top search results. Now, when something like that happens, you have a couple of choices. You can either bury your head in the sand, or you can try to make something of it. And a friend of me said, you know, why don't you use this article as an icebreaker? What if you actually started to use it as a way to get in touch with people? And so I decided to give that a try. And what I would do is I would email people I admired, and I would say people whose time I was trying to get on their calendar and try to get their advice. And I would say, hey, as you can see from this article, I don't know what I'm doing, but I would love to get some of your advice. So would you be willing to meet with me or jump on Zoom or grab coffee? And as it turns out, a large number of people, a much higher than I expected number of people, responded to that email and said, sure, I'd be happy to give you some advice. And I think they responded that way because it wasn't an email that I was sending them saying, hey, look at my resume, look at everything I've accomplished. Instead, it was, look at this article on failure, and here I am. And so clearly I don't know what I'm doing. And I think it was the humility of that really kind of opened them up. But more importantly, when we ended up having a conversation, when we ended up actually sitting down and talking, they were much more open and honest with me. And what I realized through those conversations was that the vast majority of the people that we admire, the vast majority of the people that we see as successful, if you rewind the clocks on their career and you go back to the early times, they have the same failures, the same setbacks, the same mistakes as really anybody else. It wasn't necessarily that they were born in a certain way. They weren't necessarily naturally talented, but they learned. There were a set of techniques that they learned along the way of their careers, and that's the version of them that we see today. That all got me interested in this idea of what backable is all about. What does it take to get other people to take a chance on you? And I got fascinated with the idea that, you know, there are certain people that are able to walk into a room and they're able to rally us. They're able to get us excited about their ideas. And for you today, as you know, students with ideas, building companies at such an early age, one of the most important things that I've had to learn along the way, along your journey, is when you have an idea, when you're inspired by something, how do you get other people to rally around that? How do you get other people excited about that? How do you make your idea backable? And so what I've done over the past 5 years is I have studied backable people from all different walks of life, from Oscar-winning filmmakers to fashion designers to celebrity chefs to military leaders to iconic founders to leaders within big companies like Pixar and Lego and Method. And what I've realized, again, is that they weren't born backable. There were a set of techniques that they used to make themselves backable, that they learned over time, which means that any of us can learn how to make ourselves backable. Now, I started writing this book because I was raising money for my company, and I wasn't having any luck. I was getting rejected by every investor that I pitched. But with the techniques in this book, I went out and I ended up raising millions of dollars for my company. And I now teach at Harvard University, and I get a chance to teach other people who have ideas on how to actually go out and get community organizers and teams and partners and investors excited about their ideas. And so the book is called Backable, and it's divided into these 7 qualities, these 7 surprising things. But what I want to do is I want to share with you maybe a couple of those qualities, and then we'll kind of open it up for discussion because I really want to hear your questions, and I know it's an exciting day, and we'll sort of move it along. So the first quality, the thing that surprised me the most in the beginning of writing this book was that backable people took the time to convince themselves first. They convince themselves first before they try to convince other people. So one of the things that I thought I was going to find amongst backable people is I thought they were going to be highly charismatic. I thought most of the types of people that I named off, these filmmakers and these journalists and these military leaders, they were going to have a certain style of charisma to them. But I found in the majority of cases that was not true. Sure, you had some backable people that were more extroverted and gregarious, but a lot of them were shy and quiet. They all had their own sort of styles. And if you want a quick example of that, go look up the #1 most popular TED Talk of all time. And what you might be surprised to find is a very un-TED-like presentation. It's a guy named Sir Ken Robinson who gives a brilliant talk on education, but he's got one hand in his pocket. He sort of meanders on and off script. But you believe every word that he says. What I realized over time is that it's not charisma that makes a person convincing. It's conviction. Backable people take the time to convince themselves first, and then they let that conviction shine through in whatever style it is that feels most natural to them. So let me run a scenario by you. Maybe this will sound familiar. You're with friends, or you're with family members, or you're with people at school, and all of a sudden, inspiration strikes, and an idea hits you, and you're like, everybody, stop what you're doing. Let me share this idea with you, and you do. You blurt it out, and then you look around and you realize that no one is quite as excited about your idea as you. It happens all the time, right? One of the things I found when I was looking inside companies on how ideas get killed inside companies, what I found is that most ideas inside companies, even the great ones, don't get killed inside the conference rooms. They don't get killed inside formal pitch meetings. They actually get killed inside the hallways. They get killed inside casual conversations because we're sharing these ideas in these casual moments. And we do that and we don't get the reaction we want. And we put our idea in a mental drawer and we sort of walk away. What backable people tend to do is they tend to almost run this little decision tree in their head. They ask themselves, is this something that I have high conviction for? Or is this something that I have low conviction for? If it's something that I have high conviction, one way to think about it is this a peanut M&M or is this a chocolate M&M? Where a peanut M&M is not a piece of steel, it's not a piece of metal, but you can squeeze on it and it's not going to break immediately. But if it's a chocolate M&M, as soon as you squeeze it, it cracks. Right now, so backable people do is they ask themselves, is this a peanut M&M or is this a chocolate M&M? If the idea does not have a peanut inside, what backable people tend to do is they tend to resist the temptation to share that idea immediately. They resist the temptation to share it in the moment. And they take what we call in the book incubation time. Incubation time. Incubation time is quiet time that you spend alone with your idea before you share it with anyone, including friends, including family. Because again, their reaction at that early stage really matters. And you want to have enough time to put that peanut inside. Now, putting a peanut inside can happen through drawing out your idea. It can be through talking it out by yourself. Some people do videos and just watch their videos of them describing out their idea. I like to write my idea out. I'm a writer by nature, so I like to literally take blank sheets of paper and just start writing my idea out. But there's a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to incubation time. The first is that you don't want to go on with incubation time endlessly. Right? There are a lot of people out there that have had ideas that they've been thinking about for years, and they still haven't shared it. You don't want to be one of those people either. If you have something that excites you, you want to get it out into the world. But at the same time, you want to give yourself enough time to incubate it so that it has that peanut inside. So what's the right balance? Well, one technique I like to use is I like to call a friend when I'm excited about an idea. And I like to say to that friend, hey, 3 weeks from now, I'd like to share an idea with you. Can we put something on the calendar right now? And usually, and I'll say, you know what? I can't tell you what this is all about right now. I'm going to tell you in 3 weeks, but I want to make sure we carve that time out. And what that does is that gives me enough time to really start thinking about the idea, but not too much time where I'm gonna sit on it forever. So setting an end date of some sort to your incubation time. The second thing is that you want to not only, when you're writing out your idea or drawing it out, you not only want to think about why the idea is exciting, you want to think about the objections to your idea. In the book, I call this steering into the objections. So what are the top 2 to 3 reasons why somebody might not like this idea? And you want to start thinking about that yourself. Because when it comes to building conviction, you don't want to just have thought about why you like the idea. You want to think about the holes that they're inevitably going to poke in your idea. And you want to be able to talk through those holes. So steering through the objections yourself, steering into objections and thinking about those, gets you that level of conviction, that level of confidence to be able to walk into a room and say, I'm here to defend my idea and present it in a way that I'm passionate about. So that's the first thing, is to convince yourself first. And what I thought I might do is I'm going to share one more very, very quickly, and then we'll jump to Q&A. So the second thing is that when you are dealing with other people and you're trying to get other people excited about an idea, it is important to flip outsiders into insiders. Flip outsiders into insiders. So what do we mean by that? One of my favorite anecdotes from the book is the story of Betty Crocker in the 1940s. Betty Crocker introduces instant cake mix, and they think that instant cake mix is going to be a huge, huge hit. They think the product is going to fly off the shelves. And so all the executives inside Betty Crocker are really confused when they find out that instant cake mix just is not selling, and they can't figure out why. And so they hire a psychologist named Ernest Deichter to go out into the field and start interviewing customers. And what Deichter comes back with was fascinating. He comes to the executives and he says, I think that you have made the process of making a cake too easy, too simple. You've made it so easy that when the customer pulls the cake out of the oven, they actually don't feel any sense of ownership over it. So what Deichter recommends is, why don't you remove one ingredient? Remove one ingredient and see what happens. And so they do. They remove the egg. So now as a customer, you have to crack and mix in your own fresh egg, and sales fly through the roof. Because now when the cake comes out of the oven, customers feel like they were part of the creative process. And researchers, neuroscientists have unpacked this over and over again. A few years ago, there was a group that called this the IKEA effect, which basically says that we value something that we build with our own hands up to 5 times more than something that we simply buy off the shelf. So there are a lot of people out there with poorly made futons and furniture that they're never going to get rid of because they made it themselves. They feel a sense of ownership over it. So what does this have to do with creativity? What does this have to do with innovation and business building? Well, we've been told that creativity is a 2-step formula. You come up with a great idea and you execute on it really well, right? But there's a hidden step in between. And it's in that hidden step where we bring in early people. We bring in early team members. We bring in early partners, early investors, and we make them feel like it's their idea as well. We bring them in before our idea is fully baked, so that when we reach execution stage, we reach it together. We reach it together because those people had the chance to take an egg crack it open, and mix their own egg into the mix. So we made this cake together. And I believe that you can trace every successful company, every successful political organization, every successful community movement back to this hidden step. It never happened with just one person. It always happened because there was a team of people, a group of people who felt just as much ownership over that idea as that person who came up with it in the first place. So flipping outsiders into insiders. Let me just wrap up by just saying one thing, which is that I'm coming to you today as a technology founder and as an author. But as I said before, I'm coming to you because I have a long list of failures as well. And my company, which I started called Rise, was a one-on-one health coaching company. We ended up doing pretty well as a company. We ended up being able to save, help the lives of tens of thousands of people. And we ended up selling the company to a larger company called One Medical. And I think our shareholders, our investors were happy. Our team was happy. But I had this moment where I had mixed feelings about the idea of selling the company, because when I started it, I really felt like we could have been more. I really felt like we were going to be bigger than we ended up being. And so I signed that paperwork with mixed feelings. But an interesting thing happened a few months after the sale. I was at a healthcare conference and I was sitting in the audience. I wasn't there as a speaker. I was just there as an audience member. And there was a healthcare founder of another company that was doing really, really well up on stage. And he was speaking about his company, and his company was all the rage, and so everybody was tuned into what he was saying. And then finally, during Q&A, somebody asked him, "What inspired you to start the company?" And he thought about it for a moment, and he said, one of the companies that inspired me was a company called Rise. That was my company. Now, he didn't know that I was in the audience. He didn't know that I was sitting there. But it just went to show me that when we put something out in the world, when we have an entrepreneurial spirit and we put ourselves out there, whether that be through a company or whether that be through an initiative or whether that be a book or a creative project, whatever it is, the place that we get to may not be our intended destination. The place that we get to may not be where we had planned on going, but the impact that we have continues to live on. When you put yourself out there, you may not reach your intended destination, but you touch and you teach people along the way. And that may make a bigger impact on the world than you could have ever imagined. So Paul, with that, I will pause and love to open it up and take any questions.
Oh, no, that's excellent. It reminds me, well, actually, first, I'm going to cue everybody up, and I have two comments as we're waiting for questions to come. So I will remind everyone that you can enter questions in the chat. We will not do the video feed this time. We will do just chat questions. I will read your question, and then we will get it answered by Sunil. So as I'm waiting for some of those to queue up, when you talked about step one, you got to convince yourself first, right? And I think that is such, it sounds simple, right? It really does. Like, well, of course I have to believe in what I'm selling. But at the same time, I would imagine that, both in your research and then in folks that you've connected with, a lot of times that's a lot harder than it sounds, right? Because again, that fear of failure. Tell me a little bit, how would you advise you kind of get over that hump?
Yeah. Well, you're right. It does sound obvious. And when I started to kind of realize this, I thought to myself, look, of course, if I don't believe in what I'm saying, then they can't believe. But what's interesting, Paul, is that a lot of people, founders, people inside companies, we very quickly jump from idea mode into presentation mode. So we get excited about something and very quickly jump into, well, how am I going to actually present this to other people? We start jumping to creating PowerPoint slides or starting to draft an email to colleagues right away. But we haven't built that conviction ourselves. And in a lot of ways, that incubation time, that time that we're talking about is really meant to address that sort of fear that you're talking about. Because I think the thing that we fear more than anything else is that when we're sharing our ideas, we're going to get asked the wrong question We're gonna find ourselves in a moment where somebody is gonna say something that we haven't thought of before, and that can happen. That can still happen even if you do take incubation time. But by spending the time to convince yourself first, you're first of all minimizing that risk, and second of all, you're really sort of building, I think, that internal confidence where even if you don't have all the answers, you're still able to have a reasonable conversation. And again, like when it comes to new ideas, chances are you're not going to have perfect answers to everything. If you did, then it probably wouldn't be a new idea. So what we're talking about here isn't making necessarily your idea bulletproof. And in some ways, it would actually be better if your idea isn't bulletproof, so that you have more of an opportunity to flip outsiders into insiders and bring people into the process. But you want to be able to have a conversation. You want to be able to have a back and forth.
No, and you know what? And now, clearly I was paying attention. I was going to ask. That was kind of my second question, right? Is how can you then take that process and use that to turn those outsiders into insiders and make them feel like they're part of baking that cake?
Yeah. I mean, I spent time inside a venture capital firm it was in Silicon Valley on Sand Hill Road called Kleiner Perkins. And one of the things that I was impressed by was when founders would come in and say, look, here's what we have figured out. Here's what we don't actually have figured out. Now, here's what we don't have figured out. The one important thing to know about that, it doesn't mean they've thought any less about that part. It doesn't mean that they're unprepared for that part. In fact, sometimes it takes more preparation to talk about what you don't know than to talk about what you do know.
Sure.
Because what you don't know requires a real conversation. It requires you to get into problem-solving mode right inside the room. And that requires practice, that requires preparation. But the people who tended to be able to do that, to say, look, I've got about 90% of this figured out, but there's this part I don't have figured out. And by the way, I would love your advice because you've done this before. Those tended to be the most successful pitches.
Absolutely. So, well, hey, I've got my first two questions up. So this first one is from Jefferson Cooper, and he's from our company Trend Z Consulting. He wants to know, what inspired you to start Rise?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that question. I started Rise because when I was a kid, when I was about 9 years old, my father had an emergency triple bypass surgery. He dropped me off at school, said, I've got a routine checkup today, and I'm going to pick you up after school. And I waited outside after school, and he never came. My aunt ended up showing up an hour later because during that time he had gone in for his routine checkup, and they checked his heart rate and said something's wrong here. They put him through a stress test and eventually rushed him to the operating room. And I remember going to the hospital and feeling like my father had aged over 20 years overnight. He just looked like a different person. And when we were driving home from the hospital, they had given us some paperwork. They gave us some stuff to take home. And on that paperwork, some of it was how to eat, how to live at home now. And it said things like eat broccoli, eat Brussels sprouts. And I remember thinking to myself, we don't eat broccoli. We don't eat Brussels sprouts. Like, we're an Indian family. We eat Indian food at home. Like, I don't even know how this is going to stick. I don't know how this is going to work. And thankfully, insurance helped pay for the cost of a nutritionist to really help our family figure out how to adjust our habits at home. And I believe that nutritionist is the reason that my father is still alive today. And I wanted to make that type of care accessible. I wanted to make it affordable because it's out of reach for too many people. And so what's interesting is that I ended up not telling that story in the beginning when I was pitching my company. When I initially would pitch Rise to investors, I would pitch the market size. I would talk about the rising rates of diabetes and hypertension and obesity, and that Rise was this one-on-one coaching platform where you can have your own nutritionist right over your mobile phone. And I never told that story. And eventually I pitched a guy named Tim Ferriss, who is an author and an investor, and I ended up telling that story, but I told that story at the very end, kind of during our Q&A when we were just talking. And Tim looked at me and he said, "Why would you not tell that story Like, why would you not tell that story first? Like, have that be the first thing that you tell investors. And then you can talk about the market size, and you can talk about the number of people who are going through their version of your father's story. But tell that story first. And that ended up shaping the way that I think about pitching now, whether I'm pitching any type of idea, is that it's really stories that bring us in. It's really stories that sort of, I think, capture attention. And then substance and the numbers absolutely you need, but that comes next. The stories are what pull us in, and the substance is what keeps us there. So you got to have both.
No, absolutely. I think, I actually had a conversation with a donor today that was exactly the same. They wanted to hear the story. They wanted to know the impact, the how I'm going to do it, the numbers of kids. They want to know what happens.
Yeah.
Based on the work that your company could do. How would someone's life change because of your work? And that segues into our then second question. So how did you stay humble when Rise was a success, particularly after maybe some of the false starts that you may have had early in your career? How do you stay humble through something like that?
Well, I think I stay humble in part because I know how the difference between success and failure can be a relatively thin line, right? And I know that now, and so I think that luck plays a huge role, and I think along with everything else, along with talent and hard work and learning how to make yourself backable and having some other qualities, but I feel like luck does play a role, and I certainly know that. A big part, I think, of being an entrepreneur, being a successful entrepreneur, is at some point in time, I think, learning how to let go of your ego. Now, I know that there are certain examples out there where that is not the case, but I would say to you that the vast majority of highly successful entrepreneurs that I have met have gone through this journey of learning how to make it about something other than them. Right? One of the great coaches in Silicon Valley, a woman named Maureen Taylor. She advises and coaches a lot of the early founders as they're just trying to figure out how to become leaders. And one of the things that she says to them is that when you walk into a room, any type of room, whether that be your team, that be your board members, your shareholders, whatever it is, you're going to feel like the spotlight is on you. Your job, as soon as possible, is to take that spotlight and to turn that spotlight to something else. And that something else is the person that you are trying to serve. It's the communities you're trying to serve. It's the people you're trying to serve. It's not about you, it's about them. And as long as you can keep that in mind, you can let go of your ego. And I think that you can rise to a whole new level while staying humble.
Yeah. Okay. And I do want to give credit to Luke from Trend Z who asked that question. And now I have a question from Maddie Ring from Philly. So how do you stay motivated? Again, kind of is through the ups and downs of your career. How do you stay motivated?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I think about the world differently now than I did maybe even 10 years ago is that I've started to look at life less as a to-do list and more as a to-learn list. What do I really want to learn in life? Like, what are the things that I'm curious about, and how do I learn those things? Now, I let that shape kind of how I want to direct my career, what I want to go after, the projects I want to take on, and I think it's a nice guide, because if you're curious about something, then you're going to be interested in it. You're going to be excited about your work, but it's got another benefit to it, and it really gets to this question around motivation, which is that even if it's not to work out, even if it fails, well, the learning behind it still succeeds. So I'll give you an example. Backable, this book that I just put out, it became a bestseller, but I didn't go in it with the idea of I need to write a best-selling book. And the reason that I didn't go in with that mindset is I knew that if I did, I would never sit down and do the work. I never would have sat down day after day and written, because in my back of my mind, I would have been thinking to myself the whole time, like, this isn't good enough to be a bestseller. What you're writing down on paper right now isn't going to be good enough, right? But instead, I decided to reframe it a couple of years ago when I started to take my research and actually put it down on paper. I said, no, I'm not going to think about Backable being a bestseller. My goal is to actually become a better writer. And if I want to become a better writer, then that means I actually have to write. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write every day. And this is the topic that I'm interested in. So I'm going to be writing about this topic, and I'm going to do it every single day because I want to become a better writer. And if Backable becomes a bestseller, great. If Backable doesn't become a bestseller, that's fine too, because my objective was to learn to become a better writer.
Gotcha. We have one more question, and then I know that you had some final parting thoughts for our students here. So our last question is from Indaya Sharma. And I'm going to paraphrase this. Give us one thing that you learned from a failure that you think would be most important to share with our students.
Such a good question. I think it's very, very important to have a circle of people around you. That's true in success, but I think it's particularly true in failure, to have a circle of people who are around you. And I think one of the things that I've learned about relationships, about friendships, and just generally that it's been a very, very important lesson for me is I'm the kind of person generally who wants to go out and make lots of friends, and that's good. I think that it's good to have lots of relationships and know lots of people. But I think what I hold much more sacred now is having a close circle of people, just a few people who I know can lean on, and they can lean on me. I took a trip. We were talking Paul, a little about this before. I took a trip to the Kingdom of Bhutan a few years ago. And Bhutan is interesting because it's the only country in the world that measures itself based on what's called gross national happiness. So gross domestic product and economic growth are factors, they're important, but they all roll up to this higher metric, which is about the happiness of their people. And I have found that to be fascinating. And while I was there, I had a chance to spend time with the people who go out and do the research on the ground to collect the numbers and collect the data. And I asked them a question. I said, is there one question that you could ask someone when you're talking to citizens? Is there one question you could ask that can give you a pretty good indication of someone's happiness? And they said, yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. And the question is, if you were in real trouble right now, you're in real trouble, who could you call and know with 100% certainty that they would be there for you? And they believe people who have an answer to that question have a much higher likelihood of being happy. But there's a twist. And the twist is, whose list are you on? Who do you know that's out there who could call you? And they know with 100% certainty you would be there for them, no matter what. And they believe that the answer to that question is just as important, if not more important. So it's not a transaction. It's a circle. It's a circle. It's a community of people. And I think that's true in business. I think that's true in life. It's true in success, and it's certainly true in failure, to have those people that you can lean on no matter what happens.
Great stuff. Thank you. And thank you to our students who asked questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of remarks here, and then stick with us because we still have a chance to share the winner of our company program competition commercial award. So Sunil.
Well, Paul, thanks again for the invitation to come here. I mean, I'm just blown away by how much has happened since I was in the program, and then to realize that we're part of a 100-year plus sort of history. It's really humbling to be part of something like this, and I'm really proud to see what I'm seeing right now. So congratulations to all of you. I have two daughters of my own now. One's 8 and one's 4, and because they both do homeschool. Every morning before they log on to their laptops, we do a little game. We do a little routine, and we've been doing this now for about a year. And I asked them 2 questions. And the first question I asked them is, what is the meaning of life? And they say, to find your gift. And then I say, well, then what is the purpose of life? And they say, to give it away. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. Backable, what we've been talking about for the past 45 minutes, is really about how do we give our gift away. But I find that there are 3 words that tend to hold us back from doing that sometimes. And those 3 words are, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to run with that new idea. I'm not ready to step into that leadership role. I'm not ready to speak my mind. I'm not ready. But I can tell you now, after having spent time with hundreds of extraordinary people and studying their habits and behaviors and their lives, that none of them were really ready. 3 friends from design school were not ready to start Airbnb. A mid-level talent manager wasn't ready to start SoulCycle. A 15-year-old from Stockholm, Sweden, wasn't ready to build an environmental movement, but today Greta Thunberg is Time Magazine's youngest person of the year. And there were setbacks and there were mistakes and there were failures along the way. None of it was easy, but they all seem to adopt a mantra that I'd love to leave with you tonight, which is that the opposite of success is not failure. It's boredom. So let's run with the things that make us come alive. Let's inspire good people to join us along for the ride. Because if no one's told you this, then let me be the one to do so. You are ready. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fantastic. I hope this is not the last time that you get a chance to speak to junior achievement students. I'm going to be, sharing this opportunity with my peers across the country. So don't be surprised if you get some more requests. Thank you for your time tonight. You're welcome to stick around, but I do know that you have a previous engagement, and we will see you soon. So good night. So everyone on our call still, we're entering the home stretch here. Before we announce the You Choose Award, we want to remind you to come back tomorrow night. You can find our link on social media and on our YouTube channel. And I would ask for 2 reasons. First of all, we really want to share with the community the great work that you have done. And we're going to get a chance to see that tomorrow night in your company presentations. But honestly, I would also ask, do it for junior achievement. Because as those of you know, and those of you who've heard me speak before, we are only as strong as the community partners that support us. And this is really a great opportunity to get the word out there for junior achievement. So please, please, please invite as many people as you know to our pitch presentation tomorrow night, and then also to our awards ceremony on Thursday. So with that, I wish we kind of had a drum roll here. Stuart, I am assuming we are ready to go. I have just received the message. We have through our virtual voting, we have the winner of the You Choose Award, and that is Philip Philly. Philip Philly is the winner of the 2021 You Choose Award. I think we may have a fancy graphic here we're not going to put up. We are going to put up. If not, I will give thumbs up and drum roll, and we will make sure that we get individual congratulations to all of our members of the Philip Philly team. And I want to look at the chat here and see all the congratulations for our first award. And again, Philip Philly for You Choose. So with that, I'm going to sign off. We're a couple minutes early, and I look forward to seeing everyone. Let's get as many people watching the great work that you all have done, and I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow night. Thank you, and let's be careful out there.